what you have done. ఎవరైనా చెప్పగలరా మీరు ఏం చేశారనేది? లంచ్ బ్రేక్ ఇచ్చిన తర్వాత సగం మంది వెళ్ళిపోతారేమో అని మా కంపెనీలో కొంతమంది భయపడ్డారు. నేను అందుకే చెప్తున్నాను, వాళ్ళందరూ చాలా మంచి వాళ్ళు, చాలా అసలు ఇంకా వాళ్ళ ఫ్రెండ్స్కి ఫోన్ చేసి మరీ పిలుస్తారు అని కూడా చెప్పారు. మా చైర్పర్సన్ గారు నమ్మలేదు అన్నమాట. నమ్మేదా మేడం? ఒకసారి చైర్పర్సన్ గారు పోయేసుకోండి ఒకసారి. We will be commencing the second technical session in more time from now. But I will give you, or I will place before you an important proposition. Those who talk in between the sessions, they will be forced to ask a question to the speaker. And those who sleep in between the sessions will be compelled to come and present a paper. And so all of you please keep this in mind. Remain calm, don't sleep or don't watch YouTube videos in between. Right? All these sessions will be uploaded on YouTube. You can watch it at a later point of time also, and also tell your friends to watch them so that they will also get benefited. So friends, it's time for the second technical session on a very most important topic, leadership. Now I request the session chairman, C.A. Rekha.U.S, to please come on to the desk. Now I request the student speaker, Alankriti, to come on to the desk. And I request the Sigatia team to welcome her with a now I request Diksha Yadav to come on to the desk. I request student speaker Pranav to come on to the desk. To Pranav.
Before I start, CFO. Please do that. If you are able to shout like this, yes. I didn't see much of a congratulation. Are you doubting yourself? Yes? Most of you are doubting yourself, is it? Yes? Be loud. You had so much of energy in the beginning now. What happened? Are you doubting yourself? No? Yes? Okay, so we have three speakers. Alankriti, she's from Kanpur, speaking on role of the CFO. Then we have Diksha. Diksha is from Yadav and she'll be taking us through pyramid management. And then we have Pranav from Chennai, who will be dealing with standard operating procedures. Now, these three topics, if you see, apart from the session we had in the morning relating to accounting, say whether it is robotic accounting or inflation accounting, this is a topic which is useful for you not just during the course, during the duration of the course, but even when you pass out. A basic skills, like morning Jaichara sir was telling about the soft skills and communication skills. So this is one aspect which has a long-standing effect. And with respect to the role of CFO, I think how many of you know Divya Surya? Yes? Now no sound, is it? Please raise your hands. Divya Surya, no googling. No googling. Okay, Divya Surya, who is she? CFO? Since the topic is related to CFO, you don't say it. What is Divya Surya? I think I saw one or two hands from amongst the girls. Anyone? Yeah, please. She is the CFO of General Motors. Now she has shifted. She is the first Indian American to be selected as the CFO of General Motors. She is based out of Chennai, the daughter of a banker. Now, why I am telling this example is, without coming from any high-profile background, if a person is able to be, or if a person is able to make as a CFO of an American company, I think this is something that has to be inculcated from the time you study, from during the course. So that is one of the reasons why you have this particular topic included as a part of your seminar. Now first we will move on to the first speaker, Alankriti. She will be telling us about the role of CFO. Over to you, Alankriti. Now one more round of applause for her, please.
అమ్మాయి అటు ఇటు తిరుగుతుంది. is expected to wear multiple hats, right from being an architect of business value to being a financial gatekeeper. With the change in technology, a CFO is expected to keep himself updated with the changing technology and the world. Now, a CFO is considered to be very important for the company as well. Now coming to the very important question, who is a CFO? CFO is considered to be the captain of the team, holding the topmost financial position in an organization. They report directly to a CEO. They report directly CEO and a substantial interest in the company's investments, capital structure, money management, and long-term business strategies. As you can see on the screen, there are n number of roles that a CFO can play. He oversees the comptroller, is considered to be the most financial position in the company. Now, how to be a CFO? CFO comes up to the various ranks. He is considered to hold multiple financial positions in an organization, maybe a VP of a controller of finance. Most of them can be considered to have deep business knowledge or may hold dual degrees in finance and accounting or an MBA. Now to become a CFA, it's very important to have deep financial management knowledge as well as experience. Only then it can be effective and efficient for a company or an organization. Now, the very basic and important foremost question comes, what are the roles of CFO? CFO has two-fold roles. First, overseeing the organization's activities and including being responsible for the finance and accounting professionals who perform operational functions. Second, serve as a strategic advisor for the CEO and C-suite peers. Now, CFO handles complex data, whether of present, past, or predicted future results. They have a good idea as to what has to be done if future is uncertain, and that is why every company is focused by appointing a CFO. Now here are the list of some of the roles that a CFO plays. To start with, it's cash flow. Now, as a chief financial officer, one is considered to make the cash flow stable in an organization. He is responsible for seeing what are the sources and the uses of cash flow. He is the one who receives, has the ownership and disburses the company's monies and various securities. Cash is the king and the flow of cash or cash flow is considered the most important role of the CFO. Financial relationships. Again, a CFO plays an important role in establishing and maintaining financial relationship and communication with various, be it investment banking, financial analysts, or the shareholders in conjunction with the president. He needs to see what has to be done, what strategies need to be made, what shareholders need to be communicated, what important decisions need to be done, and for this, maintaining relations is very equally important in an organization. Next comes up is the raising of funds. One may think that raising of funds is considered to be the most important role of a CFO. Indeed, it is, but definitely comes after some of the roles. So, raising is basically concerned with what has to be raised in the form of funds, where it has to be debt, where it has to be equity, because ultimately we all know that for the success of the company, the base starts with what are the funds that have been invested in it. The next comes is the record control. Again, we can see that CFO is responsible for all the financial aspects of an organization, including the real estate bids, contracts, and leases. He even ensures the insurance covers and also ensures that proper documentation of the important financial aspects are made, prepares financial records, and it also ensures that statutory audit are conducted in time, as well as closing hours as per the prescribed procedures. He needs one of the again primary role here plays is that CFO needs to make sure that the policies are in compliance with, in which one of the example can be as gap. Now, further comes the allocation of funds. Once the funds have been raised, the next important step goes out how the funds need to be allocated, whether we need more of long-term or short-term and so on. And for this allocation, three important points need to be considered. First, what is the size of the organization and what are the growth potentials of that particular organization. Second, what is the nature of the funds that we have raised, whether they are long-term or short-term. And the third goes, what is the mode by which those funds have been raised. Because ultimately, the type of fund that is raised depends on how the profit that the company will be earning. If it is long-term debts, then which means company will need to have more of interest, while if it is more of shares, then which means per share value will be less. Right? Further, you have disposal of profits. Now again, CFO needs to decide how much profits need to be distributed to the shareholders in the form of dividend. And for again, here the decision, he needs to consider many factors, such as what are the earning trends of the company, what are the market price trends of the shares, and also the most important thing, that what is the future self-financing plan of the company. Financial control. As we can see, another important function of financial manager, that is again called as CFO, is to see the financial control in an organization, which can be basically considered as ROI, is return on investment. Other techniques where financial control can be done is considered as budget cost control, ratio analysis, cash flow analysis, and many other things. Other rules to be spoken in brief can relate to company liabilities. A CFO needs to have an overview of what are the liabilities a company has. A company has various types of liabilities, the statutory liability, tax liability, the hidden liabilities, the various tax implications, and so on. Further, it is company performance. It is very important for a CFO to understand the company and its model, and even the industry where it is working, because only then they will be able to understand what the customers are demanding and again create more value for them. The next one comes is department supervision. Usually in small organizations, CFO is responsible to supervise the accounting, finance, HR and IT department. While in the big organizations, we can see the supervision is basically limited to accounting and finance. But in either of the ways, the basic role of CFO is concise to accounting and finance, because which again CFO's role is considered to be for it. Shareholders relation. It is equally important that he maintains good relations with the shareholders and consider the various policies, procedures, what are the ways where funds have been raised, how shareholders are being considered while dividing the dividends, and various other factors. Profit planning. Again, profit planning is again a very important thing, because until we know what profits we have earned and how to distribute it, like what are the ways we should earn, what is the ways we should distribute it, then even if the management is no matter how good, but if our distribution and our earning capacity turns out to be good, then no company can stand it. The last one stands is the understanding the capital market. Now, as we know, today every company is in a good position to have their shares listed on stock exchanges. So this forms an important need for the CFO to understand the capital structure in which the shares are continuously traded and continuously sale and purchase are being made. And we as are very well aware that in stock market there is a lot of risk involved in shares. So again, CFO need to understand what are the risks available, what are the things which we can reduce it and make the company in a better position. The next here comes are the four fundamental principles, pillars of the role of a CFO. That is leadership, operations, control and strategy. Now, to be an effective business partner, it is very important for the CFO to inculcate the skills of leadership and communication. He needs to advise and counsel as well as be the voice of reason. He needs to communicate the information in clear and concise way so that everyone can understand. Next one is the operations. Again, as I previously said, it is very important for the CFO to understand the company's model and its understanding, because only then he will know what strategies to form, what are the things that companies lack, what is the where the competitors are working more and more and we need to again compete with them. Right? Now comes the control. In the increasingly global and evolving worlds with the applicable regulatory compliances, it is very important for the CFO to assess and mitigate the controls as well as the risks that are available. So much of the risks that are there in the company where the main disadvantage it causes for a company. It really needs to pay attention to the various risks that are happening and also how the competitors are mitigating it and what we as our companies can do the same. Lastly is the strategy. The supporting strategy development and its execution turns out to be again a very important role for the CFO. He needs to understand what needs to be prioritized and whether the strategies can be funded. He needs to also see that not only making the strategies enough, but they also need to be communicated to the shareholders or others within the management. Because until the strategies are communicated, there is no execution for it. Further comes the changing or the evolving role of CFO. Traditionally, a CFO was basically concerned with the cash flow, like what is the balance sheet, what is the revenue, and somewhat regulatory compliances. But with the changing decades, everything has changed. Right from a bookkeeper and to the assessor and analyzer of the emerging trends of market, the role of CFO has expanded. And the role has drastically changed because of the two simple reasons. First one, the increasing competition, which earns us the need to change and earns us the need to update ourselves. And second is the changes happening in various sectors and the finance industry. Because no matter how many industries are there, finance industries turns out to be the core part. Because if finance is not maintained in a country, in our state, in our city, then nothing else can be maintained. Next comes the CFO executes, produce most valuable contribution. Some of the facts can be seen that 61% it helps in 61% improving customer segmentation, 59% measuring marketing ROI, 58% optimizing the product portfolio, 39% managing cost and profitability, and 36% setting budgets. Now coming to benefits of having a CFO. Every time we talk about role of CFO, what does he do, but what are the actual benefits of having a CFO? As you can see, first of all, the leadership skills. Because it is very important for anyone to become a person, but it is their leadership that adds to the company. Further, the industry knowledge. The more knowledge he has, is more benefit for the company. Because ultimately, companies like to hire CFO because so as to compete with the competitors. Similarly, as Netflix did by hiring Activision's finance chief. Growth experience. A CFO is considered to have great experience. That is why only with particular degrees that they are appointed. Because they have those experience to add into the company's value. Lastly, risk assessment and management. Where risk is not only with the regulatory compliance, but also the risk whether the company has too much of debt, too little of liquidity, whether there are proper tenders they are associated with, and so on. Now coming to the challenges. Cost challenges. As we see in today's world, the cost is increasing like anything, be it of salary, wages, raw material, even the statutory updates and IT compliances need a lot of cost. Economic uncertainty. Client bankruptcy and non-payment are considered to be the most biggest challenge that a person can face in a company. Finding and retaining talents. For a CFO to work efficient, it is equally important for him to have a good team. And for that, more, they need to understand more. So again, it turns out to be a very difficult point for a CFO. Cyber security. I think I don't need to explain on this because cyber security has reached its high level and probably going to reach more because the things are more of fraud, more of ill efforts that are made on social media, anything. As you can see, the average annual salary. A CFO salary in India with an experience of less than 9 years to 20 years ranges from 8 lakh to 102 lakh, which I guess is a good pay. And even the average salary, which turns out to be 40 lakhs, is also considered to be too good as well. Some of the famous CFOs in India are Alankriti, CFO of Reliance, Ritesh Tiwari, CFO of HUL, Nilanjan Roy, CFO of Infosys, Soman Ray, CFO of Bharti. To conclude with, I would like to say that people usually think that CFO is there to tell that you don't have enough budget when you need to achieve something. But in today's CFO need to reduce the number and just stereotype and think themselves as the most strategic power of the company. Thank you.
Shall we give a big round of applause to our before we proceed with Diksha, can we have few questions from the audience? Yes? So that person who made the sound. Please come on to the stage. We'll have a question for you. Now everybody has started making that sound, is it? So, any questions? Any questions from the girls? So shall we proceed to the next speaker? Yes? So we have Diksha from Sigatia. She will be taking us through pyramid management. Over to you, Diksha.
In the United States, there was a strong growth in the independent business sector after the Civil War. Businesses began restructuring themselves with different levels of management and hierarchies that placed run. A very good afternoon to the chairman, dignitaries, and all the people present here. I am Diksha in front of you all to discuss about a very traditional management concept known as pyramid management. People, before starting with my discussion, I want to ask you all a very basic question. That what do you know about hierarchy? Anyone? Anyone would like to answer? Yeah, that's correct. Good working. Yeah. So a hierarchy is a way of organizing things that goes from high to low. Keep thinking for more hierarchy examples that you see every day. Take a look around you. You may still find many more examples at your office, at your home, at your shop, and even in this mega conference, like the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer, and so on. Even your family tree is a hierarchy. Starting back with your first ancestors, their children had children, and then those children had children, and so on until your family produced you. You are the child of two distinct genetic parents, and your children will be the next generation of this hierarchy. The workplace is typically a hierarchy. The title begins with the CEO, and then descends down the executive ladder to the COO, then to a manager, then assistant manager, and then individual employees. Okay, what comes to your mind when you see this picture? Yeah, well, what came first to my mind was an The chain of command is the unbroken line of authority that extends from the top of the organization, example the CEO or the president, and clarifies whom to report whom. At the beginning we talked about managers reporting to directors, who then reported to vice presidents and who then reported to presidents. Such is the chain of command. Two additional concepts go along with the chain of command. The first is authority, which describes the right inherent in a managerial position to give orders and to expect orders to be obeyed. The second one is the unity of command, which describes that a subordinate should only have one superior to whom he or she is reporting. So till now we have discussed three concepts: the chain of command, the unity of command, and the authority. All these concepts together make one major big concept, that is pyramid management. To better understand the pyramid structure, it can help to learn more about the opposite approach, which is a flat organizational structure. In recent years, flat structures have become extremely popular, especially among small startups. Some big businesses also took this structure for employee engagement. This structure encourages an open office environment where every employee feels as though he or she is in direct contact with the leadership team. Unfortunately, the flat organizational structure is not as scalable as the pyramid organizational structure. Suppose you are having 100 employees directly reporting to you, or in case you are having 20 employees or 20 managers who reports to you, and those 20 managers are overlooking 50 employees under each one of them. You will struggle to keep up with those 20 managers, and even those 20 managers will struggle to keep up with those 50 employees. I hope it helped you to understand more about the pyramid organizational structure. Now let's discuss some benefits of the pyramid organizational structure. Well-defined leadership. With a pyramid structure, it is easy to figure out everyone's authority and responsibility. The second one is departmental loyalty. A management pyramid can lead to more loyalty within departments, since employees may grow close to their managers and co-workers. The third one is promotion opportunities. When you know you can move up the company ladder, individuals at a company will feel more motivated to try hard and make a good impression. The fourth and last one is the narrow focus. This structure can be beneficial to organizations that need specialists for various projects. Instead of focusing on the overall goals of the company, you can still focus on the narrow areas which needs expertise in a particular project. Like every coin has two sides, there are some of the drawbacks of pyramid organizational structure. The first one is slower changes. Since there are more administrative aspects of this structure, it may be more challenging for changes to happen quickly. The second one is less participation. Since this structure can make it challenging for business leaders to connect with low-level employees, these employees will feel like their work is overlooked by the leaders. This can lead to less participation and productivity from low-level employees. The third one is longer chain of communication. Instead of speaking directly to the CEO, you will need to share your thoughts and concerns with your direct manager, who will then share them with your manager, and so on. Now the question arises, is there any better structure? Anyone who would like to give a guess? No one? Yeah, correct. So it's the inverted pyramid. Now let's picture the pyramid flipping upside down, so that the entire base of worker is on the top and the top is on the bottom. This does not mean that the executive team is unimportant, but it does mean that workers are making many more of their decisions on daily basis. Instead of top-tier managers making decisions which filter down to the employees, let's say, in the inverted pyramid concept, workers have the more power to make most of their own decisions without checking with management every whether they continue to do business with you or not. And it's your workers who interact with the customers. The CEO and rest of the leadership team still set the direction for the company, but they rely on the workers to follow through by making decisions that keep customers happy. The inverted leadership pyramid is a challenge to the traditional model of leadership. It is based on the argument that the kind of business environment we have in the 21st century changes rapidly and needs an organization to be much more flexible than it traditionally has. In order to successfully make the shift to an inverted pyramid, with the employees at the top, the employees will have to learn a range of new skills. They can't settle for following instructions anymore. They now must master teamwork and independent decision making. For the shift to the inverted pyramid to the work, management must be ready to shift the decision making power to the employees and to be consistent in doing so. Whatever resources employees need for developing these skills to make the shift, management should deliver the skills to the employees. Managers should also coach and mentor employees as they learn to take on their new role. At first, not all employees will readily accept this new skill. As a leader, you must be patient. You must invest time and resources to train your employees to acquire these new skills. You also need to give your employees more information about the organization and its goals, and you will need to encourage them to communicate more as they collaborate to help the organization achieve their goals. At the end, ultimately, for the shift to be successful, management needs to learn to trust the employees and to be willing to share authority with them. We have talked about pyramid concept, flat organizational structure and the inverted pyramid. But all this is incomplete until we mention about the Henry Ford. Does anyone remember we have learned these 40 principles of management in school or initial years of graduation? And also, of course, the Yadav. So Fayol introduced chain of command, separation of jobs, power and authority. And Taylor introduced job specialization. They championed the idea of structure within an organization to support efficiency and effective operation. But mark my words, people, they never actually prescribed what an organizational structure should look like. In fact, organizational structure is a matter of choice and could differ from organization to organization. It is just about that the organizational structure should be in such a way that it should increase the effective and efficiency in the operations. In recent years, it wasn't until the 1930s that organizational structures started becoming a bit more standard. As human relations theory took hold, researchers pondered an organizational structure that would allow for the needs, knowledge and opinions of employees to be better recognized. With this all, I am concluding here my part with a very beautiful thought that leaders don't set out to climb the ladder. They rise by lifting others. Thank you all for being the very patient listener and a great audience. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Diksha. So I think one big round of applause for Diksha. She's rightly mentioning about the pyramid management. So I think most of you would be aware of the bell curve. Have you heard of something called as bell curve? What is a bell curve? Bell curve structure is similar to your pyramid management. There will be a person at the top who will be the leader, who will be actually guiding the employees. There will be different level of employees with different job roles and responsibilities. So similarly, we have a pyramid structure as well as an inverted pyramid structure. So depending on as Diksha was telling, with respect to the choice of the organization, we pick and choose the kind of organizational structure they have. But at the end of the day, it is only about the effectiveness and the efficiency that the organization can impart. So now we have the third speaker from Chennai, Pranav. Pranav is going to speak on standard operating procedures. Now this topic is very much much relevant to our CA course. I think in your costing and many papers you would have seen, especially the paper where you lose more marks. I think costing is one of those papers. So please listen to the session very carefully.
First, I would like to extend my gratitude to Vijayawada branch of SIRC and Sigatia for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present this entire audience. You guys are such an energetic batch, so it is my honor to present to you guys. Now, we'll start with standard operating procedures. We pick the task which we do, and one after another, we complete the task. In the same way, if a company designs its procedures and puts a checklist on all the processes it follows, it is called as standard operating procedure. Now, this is a quote by Mr. Henry Ford. Anybody here know Mr. Henry Ford? Yes? Wow, wonderful. So, Mr. Henry Ford was the Elon Musk of the 20th century. What do I mean by this? What I mean is when in the 20th century, that is 1920s, he was the richest man. How much? 200 billion. What does this 200 billion represent? It represents half of our entire spendings in the financial year 21 as per our budget. See, just imagine the scale of $200 billion. It is such that one person, just one person, can sustain 6 months expenditure of India. Okay? So, coming back to this quote, he said in this 20th century, why he said this was, there was a demand to go from one place to another. Since there was a demand to go from one place to another, people were more acquainted with horses. Since more people were acquainted with horses, people wanted a faster horse to travel from one place to another. Since this was the situation, people demanded faster horses. Now, if you come to Mr. Henry Ford, he didn't see what that was, the horse. He didn't see that. He saw what people demanded, going from one place to another place. He saw that and he specialized in car manufacturing. Now, if we see this Ford Motors company, right? This was founded in 1903 and everything. Now we may be asking, how does this relate to SO? Okay. Now, what I am saying is, since he was the richest person in 20th century, he became rich by formulating SOPs. That's the topic of today. So guys, if you want to be rich or the richest or even surpass Elon Musk, you can do so with the help of SOPs. Now, let's see practically how SOPs can make you rich, and we can understand that through how SOPs make Henry rich, Mr. Henry Ford. Shall we? For this, we have to go down a memory lane. What I mean by memory lane is through his history. What is his history? Now, we know that he was a specialist in car manufacturing. He understood the demand of people that they want to go from one place to another place. Now that he understood that and he wanted to get into car manufacturing, he started creating companies. He started creating companies and he became the promoter of all the companies. Now, after becoming the promoter of the company, he started selling cars. So, many people even at that time tried doing that. But what made Mr. Henry Ford was SOPs that was released in 1914. What I mean by that? Anybody here, have you heard about this book called 4-Hour Work Week by doctors? Raise your hands if you do so. Okay. So, in our office, right, we normally go for 8-hour work day for 5 days a week. That means 40 hours a week we work. Since this is the situation we are facing, that we go from our home to office and we work every day for at least 8 hours, correct? This kind of a situation, this kind of an environment was first put forth by Mr. Henry Ford. He was the creator of 40-hour work week. And he was the creator of 40-hour work week when 60-hour work week was the standard. And he could do so by creating such SOPs which created car manufacturing in mass production. What I mean by that? At that time, he identified that in current term, $25,000 is a sweet spot for selling cars. Now that he identified there is a very good demand for cars at that range, he created a plan to manufacture it. And at 1930, the supply chain could not match the demand. It is at that time, you can see here, this new processing, this new conveyor belt was introduced. In this belt, the work was taken to the worker and the worker did not go to the work. What I mean by that? The car was moving and the worker just had to work from one place. This was the revolution that was created by Mr. Henry Ford. Now that we understand that, the SOPs, the standard operating procedure, the documentation of the same was known as SOP. Now I think you can understand how Mr. Ford became the richest person. Now, next slide. Here you can see the process of drafting SOPs, correct? So before seeing that, you should all know why is it even required to draft SOPs, correct? Most of the people here are either inter students or doing their articleship, correct? So, in your articleship, while you are doing audit for SC 315, understanding the entity and its environment for finding the risk of material misstatement, for finding that, you have to understand the SOPs of an organization. So, now that you understand, practically SOPs are the document through which you understand an entity. You are either placed in two bubbles. What are these two bubbles? Either you are conducting the audit and you are reviewing the SOPs, or you are put in a position during your articleship where you are made at the helm for drafting SOPs. Since this is the requirement that is put in place, drafting SOPs and how to review them became mandatory for us to know. And for just take one point from this, SA 315. Okay? Now, we'll understand how to draft SOPs with an example of WRDA, Warehousing Regulatory Development Act 2007. What does it say? If you own a warehouse, you have to get registered under this act. So, in this act, they have prepared certain standard operating procedures. And we will be seeing two of the standard operating procedures in this coming slides. So, now that we have understood, now we will understand how SOPs are drafted using that example. Okay? So, the three three-step process that is given for drafting SOP is this: purpose, procedures, and FAQs. If you are drafting the SOP, you should understand the intention behind why it is drafted. Okay? That is the purpose. After you are clear with the purpose, you will be tasked to define one step after another what a person should do. And thirdly, if there are any questions that could be asked from the steps, that will be termed as FAQs. Now, let's see with the examples of WRDA. So, the first publicly available SOP I want to present is WRDA's warehousing requirements. What does it say? Now, you have, let's take an example of a perishable good. What example I want to take? I want to take an example of apple. If you are transporting apple from one place to another, this SOP says you have to use wooden crates. Now, while transporting, you have a question. What is the question you have? The question is that you don't have wooden planks. What would you do? Here, SOP defines and states that you can use other materials other than wooden planks. This is the procedure. Now, next one. The next example. The next example I want to give is regarding warehousing requirements where you have to store foods. Now, there is a very well-known proverb that is, an apple a day keeps a doctor away, correct? So, just like that, if you want to eat apple, the warehousing requirements of the apple is also prescribed by SOPs. They have to be stored in a well-cooled environment around 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. So, if you follow all these requirements, these are procedures that are laid out in SOPs. Now that we have understood two examples, I want to take you to the third example. Guys, can you see this? In this slide, the main question posed is, say you are Geo, and as a Geo service provider, you are stuck with a natural disaster. Let's take an example of Assam floods that happened this year, just 1 to 2 months before, guys, in this monsoon. So when Assam floods happened, now Geo is in the confusion. What should I do? What is the disaster management plan that I should follow so that this situation gets mitigated? Now, to answer this question, there is a 4-step process that is prescribed by ministry, that is government. So, this is the 4-step process where if it is a natural disaster and you can't stop that from happening, you have to slow down the process so that all your materials, in this case, Geo has towers. So, you have to build towers in such a way that it can withstand floods. Now, coming to the second point. Second point being preparedness. Now that Assam floods have hit Assam, after that they should be prepared to handle a similar situation. Now, coming to the third point, that is response. Now, after 2022's floods, they should prepare a plan so that when this happens again, the same is not repeated. And they will also deploy people to safeguard certain towers that will be primary when this disaster is stricken upon. Now, fourth is the recovery. Now, everything has happened. Now, 1 or 2 months has gone past since this Assam flood. Now, after that, the Geo has the responsibility to recoup their towers again and make it workable so that people in Assam will get mobile networks again. Now that we have understood this, now I just want to conclude by saying SOPs are not just for organizations or companies. SOPs could be seen in our day-to-day life. Just like what I said in the introductory period, what we see in our day-to-day life, we wake up, we go to our work, we do our articulation, we come home. Even this could be a procedure. Even this has a purpose. Even this has a lot of FAQs, as Mr. J put forth in the morning session. Yeah. This is where I want to conclude, guys. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you.
Alankriti. So Alankriti has taken the topic of role of a CFO. So she was telling about who can be a CFO. So what are the roles for the CFO? What are the challenges that is faced by the CFO? So in one of the pillars, she was mentioning about the different CFO pillars. Say for example, strategy, operations, control. Now, how many of you know Indra Nui? PepsiCo? Yes? Now, what was the first role before becoming the CEO of PepsiCo? What is the first role? Anyone? She was a business strategist. Now, why I mentioned this is for a CFO also, the first one of the main component is understanding the strategy. They should be able to emulate the strategy, they should have a mission, and also with respect to other areas like fund management, control is another important area, and this especially for you, it is of utmost importance. So in your auditing paper, I think there is one chapter called as internal control and risk management. Yes? Throughout the chapter, you can find the terms being repeated here and there. Even after reading the chapter twice or thrice, you feel, okay, there is nothing new in the chapter. Same thing gets repeated. Now, why do you think they focus so much on that particular control aspect? Yes, as a finance person, the control is one of the most pivotal things that a finance person should be very careful. So when you have a proper control, so you must have learned two different types of control. Testing the controls as well as the procedures. Now, when your controls are strong, do you go ahead and test the procedures? Do you go for in-depth testing? Do you go? No. When you rely on the first level of controls, the procedural testing or the test of details is very less. Now, CFO plays a very, very important role in control management. Now, have you all gone through this section 177 related to audit committees? Yes? What is the role of an audit committee? Can I include like interacting with the auditors, internal auditors, getting the reviews? They also play a big role in the appointment of a CFO. So CFO, this topic is not a standalone topic. If you relate it with your corporate law or auditing paper, this is very much in tune with your syllabus. So very well done, Alankriti. Now going to the second topic, which Diksha was taking as a pyramid management. Now pyramid management. Diksha was telling about the top-down approach. Top-down approach. So have you heard this term top-down anywhere? Maybe I can give you a hint. In your EIS paper, the paper which you like the most. Yes? In your EIS paper? Yes? Where? Have you come across a term called data warehouse? Yes? So in your data warehouse, there are two different models, top-down and bottom-up approach. How you build a data warehouse from data mart and vice versa, right? Now here also we have two different types. One is an inverted pyramid model and a pyramid model. In a pyramid model, if you see in most of the companies, say if you ask your colleagues who have cleared CA final, as Jai Charan was telling in the morning, so your ultimate, as your parents say, once you qualify, that is it, you are settled. But again, there will be another push coming for the promotions, right? So in a company, say 10 of you join together, does everyone get promoted at the same time? Does anyone get promoted at the same time? No, why? Or what is the reason? Does it only depend on your performance? Does it only depend on your performance? There is something called as a bell curve. There is something called as a bell curve because they have a restriction of how many people go to the leadership, how many are fit for the next level, how many perform for the next level, and how many are good team players. So there is a criteria in which each of you get promoted. It is not just based on your performance. So here, in line with that, we have the pyramid management and as well as the inverted pyramid. And Diksha was mentioning about one point, what is change management. Yes. So what is this change management about? Is it easily acceptable by the employees? There is always a resistance to change management. Whether you implement a new ERP or whether you come up with a new software or new application, the first thing is the resistance that comes into picture. So here also, one vital point that Roshi discussed was related to trusting the employees and willing to share the responsibilities. Now, for this particular point, I would like to tell a small quote with respect to leaders. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard this. When you define a leader, they say a leader is a person who knows how to do, who actually does what he knows and who also paves the way for others or shows the way for others. So even if you know how to do and even if you do, unless and until you trust your employees and you are willing to share the responsibilities, it is as good as you are not a leader. So this again, the last point with respect to organizational choice, at the end of the day, only that matters is how they are able to reach their objective, long-term objective of wealth management. So another topic was given by Pranav relating to SOPs. Now, can anyone tell me one small real-time example with respect to SOPs? Pranav was mentioning about Henry Ford and also the two lists and all. Any other small? Okay, the way elections are conducted. Any very practical one? Now, can I just say the example of how you place an order in an e-commerce website? Yes? Can I say that? So is there any particular order you follow or directly you make the payment and wait? Directly you go, you choose a product, you do elements of screening, you add it to the cart, then you make a payment for that, then you see what is the date of delivery. So many procedures. You follow a standardized procedure. So even in your day-to-day life, if you see, we have a practical implication of SOPs. Now, even in the day-to-day life, if we have so much practical implication with respect to SOPs, understand in the industry point. So without a proper standard operating procedure, it is very, very difficult to achieve the goals. I don't know how many of you have heard this particular quote. Failure to plan is planning to fail. So unless and until you have a proper plan charted out, it is as good as you are going to fail. And I was also mentioning about SA 350. What is SA 350? I really don't know because it almost has two lines. The entire essay goes to two lines, right? Identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement by understanding the entity and its environment. Now, how many of you actually do this for audits? How many of you actually try understanding the entity before you do the audits? That is the first level of risk assessment, right? Before you start with the audit, you understand the entity, what are the risks associated with the entity, what is the governance structure, what is the investment that they have made in the near future, all those things you will understand and then go ahead and do the audit. So here also 315 plays a very important role in defining the SOPs and that point was very well brought out. So I think all the three topics which was very well taken by all the participants. Now any questions to anyone? All understood? Yes, Pakka? This is waiting for the tea break? Yes? No delays.
Madam, tea break will be having at the end of all the sessions. So once this session is concluded, we will be having an interesting quiz questions.
So any more questions or we will wind up the session? Don't have any questions? So thank you.
Yeah, please take it on my answer. Now I request CA Ram. I also request the speakers to be presented with mementos. First comes Alankriti. Next comes Diksha Yadav. Pranav. Thank you. So we have come to the conclusion of the second technical session. Now to make it more interesting to you, once we will conduct a quiz contest and each one of you will be... Yes. So the decision of the quiz master is final. Nobody can question. If someone is questioning the quiz master, I will be the final person to give the decision. Yes or no? Thank you. So Amshi, what do you know? You can start the quiz.
Thank you, sir. We have exciting tips, and one more thing is try to be genuine, do not Google it. Considering your smartness, we have tried it in the picture-based questions. Rather, if we take a paper and ask the question, we will straight away go into Google and search it. So, considering your expertise, I have taken this. Right, the first question of this competition. This is the flag of which Scandinavian country?
So, yeah, please come here. Someone please help me.
Switzerland. No, it's wrong. There. Someone can actually stand in the middle so that we can reach out to them quickly.
It's Denmark.
The relegation sir will hand over to the correct. Correction, Madam Chairman, Madam will award the gift. Finally, come on to the dance.
Anna, Pujana.
Next question is, what is the name of first person I have seen raising his hand earlier? Please stand up. If you know answer, you will have to raise your hand first. Do not shout the answer, please. Please, all you can loudly speak. Yes. Sorry? You have to be a little clear. What is the name of? As it is a visa card, what's the name? No, there's a word that you have to say. Why is it so famous for? Leaning Tower. That's right. Leaning Tower of Pisa. And the interesting fact is, this structure does not have anything inside it. It's just a hollow cylinder inside, but it looks quite amazing as it is leaning, finding it. Originally came from, you know, of course we all know this is a guitar and which country is it? Wrong. Japan? Wrong. Some of you'll get it. There's a girl who has raised her hand. Can you please hand her the mic?
United States.
No, we have got the correct answers already. It's actually Spain. And I hope everybody in this conference is taking this as more interesting than the presentations or speech. I can sense that.
That's easy bias to your boys. Now,
Let's not get it right. I'm not biased. No, I'm trying to.
I will get. How many is bias? For each question, the first chance it is giving to boys. I don't agree with that. So what I want to do is,
Okay, we'll pose this next question to only one.
not like that.
But there's a clause that they have to.
For one question, first chance should be given to boys. Next question, first chance should be given to girls.
I still need to ask a question. Someone is raising his hand there.
No. There should be equally and just. Yes? Is it okay for all of you? Right, for the next question onwards, one chance, first chance will go to boys.
Okay, sir. As you said, the next question will be first given chance to the boys.
Everything is biased.
The boys are there. There is boy and the boys.
Try to be unbiased. So what do you want to do?
I don't know what I'm going to do, but I definitely know you're going to make fun out of me. That's all.
We'll do one thing. This time, first chance will be given to the boys.
As you said, this time you tell them.
Yes.
Statue is the award for which prestigious and famous event? I have given chance to the girls. That is right, but if you could think about it, there is a particular name given to this award. It is also known as Oscar. What is this actually called? That's the correct answer, but the actual word is the Academy of Awards, also called as Oscar. speech after some time because our right. Let us finish this with the last question. Since most of you are in IPCC, I wish I could ask academic based question. As per section 143(9) of the Companies Act 2013, when you ask to comply, can someone stand and answer? Section 143(9). I know everybody here, lot of 143(9), an auditor is supposed to comply with the accounting standards that is issued by ICAI. Well, with this question, we'll stop this speech for a while and move on to the next session, like motivational speech by our NC also.